proposing who in my party? I thought, but we have strong women. The vice chair and the deputy president are women.
Yes.
I am not going to be nominated by a man. And although the requirement is that the bigger the name of your proposer,
Yeah.
the bigger the names of your seconders and your nominators, the more likelihood of going through. We have a very rigorous verification, confirmation, nomination process in my party.
Yes.
And so the bigger the name, the better.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I can get a woman and give her some of my power because I'm big enough. I don't need to be nominated. The party needs me more than I need the party. Of course, this is me blowing hot. Like, the wolf, the big bad wolf.
Yes.
I need the party a lot.
Yes.
But so I said, for the first time, I'm going to get a proposer who's a woman. And the looks of the men in my campaign team are like, who does that? Like, and I said, guys, let's think about it. I'm a woman. I'm a strong woman. The vice chair of this party is a woman. She's been mayor of one of the municipalities in Kampala. She's beautiful, she's gorgeous, she has ideas. Why can't she be my proposer? And for a while, the big old men didn't want me to have her because they wanted one of their own.
Yeah.
But I went to this lady and I approached her and she said, oh my God, in the whole history of my time in politics, I've been a flower accompanying the men. No one has ever approached me and said, will you be my proposer? Nobody.
So one of the biggest issues that we're facing is that even the women who have high social capital or the fat cats in political circles, nobody's approaching them. So we are saying that women are not supporting other women, but women are not necessarily asking other women for support.
Exactly. And people took 2 weeks to process their proposals. There's money exchanged. There's all these negotiating of manifestos. Man said, where's your ID girl? Where's your ID girl? Bring your ID card and let's take the pictures and put them up on your Facebook timeline. I'm going to be your proposer in one visit. All she said to me is, Stella, stop aggressing the men. Stop offending them until when you get to parliament. Be a good Muganda woman. Then you can get your shoe and knock it on the table of parliament.
Yeah.
But right now, try to, But she was willing and she was happy. And although there was a bit of discussion about my performance as a woman in power,
Yeah.
like, be a little, right? She was not dictating to me the terms. Okay? So that's the first thing I wanted to say, that some of the women who've gone before us are actually waiting for us to say, hey, mama, help me. What's it like? There's a woman who's the incumbent in the position I want to run for. Her name is Nabila Nagaisepa. She's been the woman MP of my city for the last 15 years.
Right.
She's from my party. She's an opposition woman. There's a lot of stories told about her absence, her silence, and her impotence. And I was like, we can all bash Nabila. I bash her sometimes. I want to replace her. I didn't want her to run. And so as part of the people saying, but Nabila has been very, very silent. When our constitution was being amended in order for presidential age limits to be removed, we didn't see her participation. However, one day I sat down and listened to her story on TV. And she was narrating how she's not been supported. And she was narrating why she's been silent. How she has not been helped, facilitated by the party.
Yeah.
And I thought, I wish I had her biography. Okay? I wish I sat and listened to the women we claim have failed to represent us well. Because there's a lot I can learn by just sitting and reading her biography. But why do I need to read her biography when she's alive and I can go to her for mentorship? Mentorship is important in politics. We don't have enough political mentors, either because they are not reaching down or because we are not reaching up. Okay? So I think it takes two.
It's really interesting that you talk about mentorship because the mentorship among the men is clear. It's very clear. And that even for us with Kenyan political history, there's groups of people that were younger when there were older politicians kind of running the show. And then as the older politicians segue out, the younger ones rise up. And then now you can always see consistently, there's always a crop of younger male politicians just kind of waiting in the wings. But having that kind of clear chain is not very, very common
for women
as far as women are concerned. No. And so we find that either maybe if it is you who now, inshallah, you're now running maybe for the second or third term for your MP seat once you win, Mheshimiwa. Once you win, then people want you to run. They want you to run again. They want you to run again. And they want to be able to extract as much from you while you're there as possible, as opposed to asking who is coming after you. Who are you feeding from? Who came from above you? Who is feeding the one above you? And so this story that you've told us about the lady that... Yes, about Nabila, who nobody was supporting and who nobody knew that nobody was supporting, right? Because we always assume things. We assume that because in the party things look like they're fine, that they're fine for everybody, not necessarily. And so when we come back to this idea of collective participation, because everybody is usually kind of pointing at women as individuals. You, why aren't you participating collectively? You want, and we decide, fine, let's participate as a group. Do you think that there's room in the same way that, and that while different people might engage with the thought differently, the way the lady who nominated you was telling you, don't aggress the men, and you are an aggressor. It's who you are. It's not, you're not going to stop being an aggressor. But then, as regards political tactics and political strategy, there are times to say certain things in certain ways. And there are times to do, and that we can all, because if we collectively participate in our group, there can be the loud one. There can be the one who is quiet. There can be the one who is thinking about what is she going to wear tomorrow. Because today she wore this shade of blue. What happens when she wears another shade of blue tomorrow? They can be the one who is making sure that when you're in the late meeting, your children have eaten, And so then we are all kind of sharing the superhuman burden that it would take you to participate in politics, which men don't have to bear because they're not necessarily primary caregivers, because for you, all of it is expected all at the same time. But then if we shared the burden with you, and if women shared the burden with other women, because more things are expected of us than are expected of the other demographic, then things could work slightly differently, and there might be something interesting there. What are your thoughts, Mheshimiwa?
Okay, so first of all, Mheshimiwa, I learned this word today. And again, Njoki says to me, it comes from Mheshima.
Heshima, yes.
Heshima, right. It feels good to be called Mheshimiwa before I'm in Parliament. So thank you. Thank you for the honor, because many times I am told, Stella, you're a joke, a big fat joke. Many of the prophets prophesying over my political dream are prophets of doom, and they see death even before I take off, right? Because I've been in the academic world, I've been an academic, and we speak truth to power. We do research and we write it as it is.
Because you're working from data and evidence.
Yes, that is what I am. That is what has made my name. I tell Museveni to F off in his face, using my writings, using my body, using whatever I can. I say to him, if you can't go, you're going to face my tongue, and I'm not stopping, right? And so in terms of political tactics, the journey from academic and activist, from big mouth to politician, is very difficult. I have blundered so much in the last 7 months since I was released from prison. I have blundered so much, and every time I'm told, there she goes, the political failure, the political loser, who's her campaign manager, who's teaching her how to do politics. In politics, you don't tell the truth. You know when to shut up and when to speak.
Yeah.
And to be honest, even when they've tried to manage me,
you escape being managed.
I can't be managed. I mean, look, even God chose I'll be the one who would be unmanaged. Eh? Okay, so praise God, those who believe in God. But what I'm saying is that you talked about who mentors us.
Yeah.
Good question. Who's mentoring me? For me, it's really the idea that I can be part of this liberation in Uganda. We're dreaming of revolution, and I want to be part of it. I insist I'll be there. You can imprison me, but I'll be there. You can call me a political failure, but I'm coming. That is what's mentoring me. Who's mentoring me? The books that I've read in history, many of which are not from my context. Who's mentoring me? The gossip that I get from women who wish me well. But a lot of what is said to me is about, you won't make it. Why don't you step down? You failure. You this, you that. And the naysayers and the haters are many more than those who wish me well. That's one thing I wanted to say, that we don't have enough, even in opposition parties don't have schools where we go to be taught and built. How does one traverse from being a community leader to becoming a politician? How does one change from being an academic to being a member of parliament? I don't know. No one's teaching me. Who teaches these things in your country? Maybe you'll tell me when you get the microphones. No one's teaching me. I'm kind of feeling my way from reading the stories of others and observing people such as Millie Odiambo, who's coming in the afternoon. Just observing what other women I think are champions have done, reading their histories. The issue you tackled about who takes care of my kids when I'm away, who does that?
Who does that?
Who does that? Where are the women? And should it be their burden? I've had close friends saying, but Stella, you entered the world of men knowing full well you're a single mom. What do you expect us to do? And they're saying this to me when they've come to visit me in a police cell because I've been arrested because I'm protesting against the lack of food in COVID times. Yoweri Museveni has collected a lot of food. He promises to give food relief to the vulnerable poor. That's the label. And the food hasn't come. The women are eating from my children's kitchen. I'm tired of feeding the women because I'm not the government. The government has collected money from donors who don't follow it up. From Ugandans who are contributing. I go to protest and I'm arrested. Okay? I'm arrested not because my kids don't have food. I'm arrested because I've taken on the burden of the community. And I'm saying it's women who cook. It's women who take care of meals. The government hasn't given us meals. This is the time we should go and protest. So I've gotten some women from the sex worker movement and some women from commercial industry whose shops are locked down during the time of lockdown. And we're at a court very close to a police. I wanted the police station where we'd be arrested because at least it has clean facilities and water. So I went and held this protest right next to the central police station. We're arrested. And I'm thinking, oh God, I didn't tell my kids. Right? I don't know if you have similar electricity processes in Kenya where you prepay, but if the bill is about to run out, it starts beeping. And I'm thinking, oh God, in the morning my son told me about the electricity and I said, I'm just going to protest. Give me your saucepans. I'll come back. And I didn't take care of the yaka, we call it yaka, meter. So I'm like, who's taking care of that? So I'm sending my friend, why don't you help me send some mobile money to my children? And she's like, but Stella, you can't be failing to mother your children well and being involved in a process where men who have wives are getting involved. And so the story you ask about who's feeding the children of those at the front line is an important question. And if women were asked, who's sleeping with your husband when you are in political office? Because you have to go back and sleep with him once in a while, or maybe all the time. But who's sleeping with him for you?
And also, nobody asks the wives of the male politicians who is sleeping with you while your husband is on the campaign trail.
Because they assume that women can go without a fuck for a long time. That the men, those issues, but women. Okay, and so while I've used the wrong metaphor, guys, I studied human sexualities, forgive me. My examples all come from there. But it's an important question. Nobody's going to sleep with my husband for me. But I'm expected to be a good wife, a good mother, a good sister, a good house taker, a good kitchen manager, a good, oh God. And then I'm a good politician.
I think it's interesting that you pointed out the story of the women who came to chastise you while you were in prison.
Very good friends, by the way.
Yes.
Very good friends. They are not strangers.
No.
They are not enemy.
No.
They are women who are like, but Stella, will you manage?
And I think that's part of the collective process. I think is the idea of the collective journey. that we come to political consciousness together, such that then we understand what is being asked of you so deeply that we don't question why you're doing what you're doing, and we know that what we need to do is figure out how to plug in the gaps. So maybe we will not sleep with your lover while you're on the campaign trail, but we will make sure that the prepaid meter for the electricity is paid, that there is food in the house.
So just there, that little story ends with the landlord's wife.
Yeah.
Who then visits my sons and says, I've seen your mom again, she's arrested. I've been arrested 4 times in the COVID-19
period.
Lockdown. Yeah.
In the last...
And she says, I've just seen, I mean, the lockdown was in March.
Yeah.
But I'm being arrested for doing what I should be doing, telling the government, take care of us. But she says, hey, I saw your mom on TV. Okay? A very silent woman. She's not a politician. She's just a rich woman going on with her life.
Yeah.
I saw your mom on TV. She's speaking across the wall.
Yes.
Okay? My kids are this side of the wall.
She's on the other side of the wall.
Hey, and do you guys have supper? And hey, did she remember to do the gas? And hey, how is the electricity? And hey... And so this woman buys food. I didn't invite her. I didn't ask her. I didn't. And those women and men are never acknowledged. Right? But I want to acknowledge Pamela. She took care of my kids in that moment.
Yeah.
And I could be busy being a political prisoner. My kids were taken care of.
Yeah.
Nobody knows about Auntie Pamela. But we need very many other Auntie Pamelas. Maybe you won't be a Mheshimiwa.
Yeah.
But you could
be Auntie Pamela
behind Mheshimiwa's life. You know what I mean? We cannot all be there. We cannot.
And we should not all be there. There's,
But behind the Mheshimiwa are a line of so many people, from the woman who said to me, your lipstick needs a bit more, to the lady who gave me breakfast, to the ladies who brought me here, to Save Forum, to you who came to moderate, to you who came to touch the microphone and say, but Stella Nyanzi, one-on-one, etc., etc.
Yes.
There must be women and men, but women supporting us in the journey. And maybe the acknowledgements will never be made. Maybe they'll never join my party.
Yeah.
But Auntie Pamela, who's from the incumbent regime of the dictator, is like, although we are in different parties and she's criticizing my party, she's
I can still take care of you.
Of her children. And we need those Auntie Pamelas.
I have 2 more questions before I open for the audience. And the first one is, in this idea of taking care of one another, one of the tactics that patriarchy has successfully used against women is to divide us, using lines of class, using lines of respectability. And when you talked about the sex worker movement, when you referred earlier to queer women, to trans women, to women who are considered less than other women, and so then we are all just kind of having to compete to be at the top of the barrel. Thank you. To be at the top of the barrel, such that we are not treated as badly as the ones who are below. And so, how do we then negotiate with those kind of internal struggles within the women's within us trying to find solidarity as women? How can we find the solidarity as women when patriarchy has us invested in making sure that we are not treated as badly as I'm not treated as badly as somebody who is poorer than me, somebody who is less educated than me, somebody who is a different sexual orientation or a different gender identity than me, or somebody who has a job like a sex worker or a domestic worker. How do we deal with those obviously very harmful divides amongst us?
Look, the system of divide and rule has worked for a long time. I don't know about Kenyan history, but in Uganda, those that colonized us ensured that they divided us up so much, and then they could beat us because there's power in unity, and if we're not united, it's easier to get at us. Divisions, for me, I'll speak from my experience, because I'm not your necessarily moral woman. One of the first points through which patriarchal dictatorship has worked is to say Stella is immoral.
Yes.
When she's angry about the state or about her employers, she'll undress. Don't be immoral like Stella.
Yeah.
Okay, and so there are very many women who've taken up that line.
Yes.
And because it's about nudity, they're like, every sane person walks around dressed. This woman is insane. In fact, they went to the court and had an application to have me subjected to involuntary medical exam when I was in prison, in custody, their custody. And so the idea that anybody who is associating with me is going to be infected, contaminated with immorality and insanity runs high in my country.
Right.
And many times the purveyors, the carriers, the vectors of this form of smear campaign are not men. It is women as educated as I am who bring their religion to me and say, she is demon possessed. That is why she undresses like the man with the mob. Remember the man with the mob when Jesus was where? I don't know if it was the Sea of Galilee or if it was Lake Victoria. And the man with the mob came. And when the mob entered him, the mob of pigs, he ran to the lake or what, I don't know which, whatever.
Yeah.
Was it a river or the ocean? But you know those Bible stories.
Yes.
So the idea that nudity and nude protests that women have taken on effectively is only used by the insane. And those who will defend these amazing modes of protest are equally insane. Is used to make women just paralyzed. Stella, Nyanzi, huh? You mean the mad woman? Huh? They even wanted to take her to Butabika. Butabika is a national mental health referral hospital.
Ours is called Madare.
Okay, so they want to take her to Madare for mental exam. And you're there supporting her. Okay? And so divisions are used not so much because the idea of nude protest has never been used by men. Or because they say, but it's so uncultural. She's copying those things of Bazungu. And I'm like, things of Bazungu? Your grandmother was walking around in a bit of skin or backcloth, whatever it was.
Yeah.
I stayed in my panties. Every time I protest, I stay in my panties. I'm keeping the pussy for my husband. Only my husband, right? But I protest with the rest of my body. Yeah. And so the idea that we are demonized, psychologized.
Yes. It's an old one because people have said this about women forever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And yet it's very powerful. The modes of redress or the modes of dissent that we use as women where we employ our very own bodies.
Yes.
I mean, I have to pay nobody to expose a bit of nipple. And the nipple works. Now when there are two bazookas on the front line, the men can't handle it, my sisters. They can't. Ask me how I've changed things that I've spent 20 years, 30 years in a state of inertia. You bring your nipples to the front line, those are two bazookas, and sometimes the grenade of the belly button is also there waiting to explode. Things change, but people use this against us, right?
The cost is high.
The cost is high, but it has to be paid.
Yeah.
I'm happy to pay the cost. Right? And after I learned how effective it was, Museveni in my country knows how to use the police with their guns and the prisons and the courts, but they don't know how to shoot away at a nipple that's on the front line. They don't know how to arrest a naked belly button that's been exposed in court. And they should wait for the day that I bend over and show them my buttocks. I have not yet done that. The day that I tried to do it, the podium was very high. Why am I going into this? Is because, look, all women once in a while, at least if you're healthy and hygienic, you wake up and change. You wake up and bathe. You walk around with your body. I spend nothing, no money. I couldn't afford to go to court. I couldn't afford to get lawyers. I couldn't afford to get the public media. Do you know how many TV cameras came running when I did this form of free coverage, free airspace? So I don't understand why people who have invested nothing in leading the cause go forward shouldn't come and ally with me. So I say to other women, refuse the division. Okay? Even if you're from another party and you're a fellow woman, you have seen how powerful these tools. I'm not asking you to join the nude protest movement.
No.
I'm not asking you to speak like I speak. When I say Museveni matako, butako, that is Luganda. Museveni is a pair of buttocks. That's the translation. I'm not asking you to do the same. Do not become Nyanzi because you won't become Nyanzi. But you can ally with her and explain the powerful impact of this and show how it is grounded in history, in African context, and how it makes sense as a weapon of those who don't have, of minorities, of the poor.
And that you've actually pointed out when you talked about the cost of running for parliament, there's also the cost of getting public eyes. And you talked about...
totally free of charge.
Exactly.
I mean, the only thing is, once in a while, bad boys write on my Facebook about how they're using my nude protest pictures in the night.
I mean, and you can't stop them if that's what's helping their lives.
If it helps the revolution, go ahead. No, it wasn't the intention, but if it helps, and so all I'm saying is the very organs of division and derision, and they make a mockery of us, we can use them as stepping stones to wherever. The publicity you mentioned.
Yes.
I don't have to campaign.
No.
I go up to places and people say, "Hey, well, I'm going to vote for you, Stella Nyanzi. I've seen your nipples. I've never seen the nipples of all your other 8 contestants. At least I've seen yours."
And I mean, it's a fair point.
Well, if it makes sense to them, like I said, power to the revolution. I'm going to parliament using the nipples that you saw 20 months ago.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, if they want to divide us, we have to consciously and intentionally be calling people back to us.
We have to
sex
resist.
worker, you're my sister, I don't judge you.
Yeah.
You woman who had an abortion, I'm going to work on the issues of abortion for you.
Yeah.
Young lady, you got pregnant while you were still in school. You're a disappointment, but don't worry. I understand your story. Come, let us unite.
All of us.
And I talk about the oppression. Those of us who are oppressed, let's unite against our oppressors. Come and vote for me, right? We can tell the stories of methods later.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll need to go for psychotic help later. But as long as those that rule and dominate us are actually insane, we can't keep our divisions and separations along lines they define for us.
While we're speaking about, and this is my last question,
Yes.
Before we go, we'll have a poem by Shiki, and then we'll kind of hear from the audience.
Okay.
While we're speaking about lines that have been drawn, there's an increasing disenchantment, not just on the continent and not just in this region, but globally, with the idea of the nation state and the nation state as defined by the colonizer. And what is it that makes us define ourselves as Kenyan or as Ugandan, except for the accidents of happenstance? I happened to be born within this political arena, and that the country is an entity that is handed from one generation to the next, and it is supposed to be the grand thing that we cannot question. We cannot question that particular type of belonging. And so does seeking political power reinforce a nation-state narrative, or does it challenge it and ask it to become different in the public interest?
Right. So we in Uganda we have ethnic groups,
yes.
ethnic tribes.
We do here as well.
Right. And my tribe is Baganda. We have a king, we are a monarchy, and there are very many other ethnic tribes that were centralized in terms of government before colonialism.
Yes.
Then colonialism fucking went and happened. And we were divided up in the scramble and partition of Africa. And I think until we do something about that great injustice that was done to us, until we redress it, and become, I don't know, United States of Africa or something.
Right.
We've tried COMESA, we've tried these East African
EAC,
communities.
yes.
It was almost impossible for me to come to Kenya on Monday. Until we change our constitutions that say Constitution of the Republic of Kenya, Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, until we are intentional about breaking those barriers, those borders that were created for us. That we have, you were talking about socialization. We have socialized these things. They define who we are. You're different to me. Not because you're different to me, but because you're Kenyan and I'm Ugandan. And those are not our definitions. Until we do something about those things, we may as well work with the nation state. With those colonial demarcations and definitions. Now, the thing for me is, do we sit around waiting for Africa to get united?
Right.
Or do we participate in those processes as flawed as they are, very consciously aware that
it is a dystopia?
It is.
Yes.
But what do we do?
Or should we stand and point at it for being a dystopia until it,
And I think for me, who's now very much, I'm vested and interested in power because power affects so much.
Yes.
I want.
You know, we've been speaking about revolutions for a very long time. But until women say they've had enough, we'll keep having these conversations. We'll keep having these echo chambers where we just speak to ourselves. This room as it is with the women that are here are actually enough to cause a revolution. Unapologetic. We go, strip, nude, and say, by the way, you know what? We are breaking the status quo. And I am going to say this. The political parties that are there are shit. They're not doing anything for us. The status quo that is in our country right now is absolutely pathetic. That when the first woman who's fucking up us, Uko Jew, when someone says something about their breast, we have women who go to the streets to protest about someone who's fucking us up. So that is the women's support that we're talking about. Where is our ideology? Are we having it right? So even as we're having conversations about democracy, about women in power, we need to talk about what ideology drives us. It's not just enough to have a vagina. It's not. And anyone who does not have an ideology is a potential criminal. Even women. And they're the ones who are hurting us. And I even had afternoon engagements, but I've heard there's another panel that is coming here. And I want to face them and tell them they've failed us. So it is not enough to just have this conversation as we're having it. We need to question. We need to want that power so much. We need to be unapologetic. Stella has just told us that when she was told, when she wanted to go for power, she was told, Nyaje, tone down kidogo. Why should I? Why should I? Don't I know the power that I have as a woman? Don't I know that I am actually the change that I am looking for? So I am posing a challenge to every woman here. It is not enough that you call yourself a woman. You have to live that womanhood. And womanhood means power. We birth the society. So if it does not hurt us when the society is hurting, then there's a problem. So I'm posing this challenge to all of us today. We must be more.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's give her a hand, please. Last question.
My name is Joy Mala. I work at Power 254. I like the conversations that you're having, and I'd just like to remind my fellow women and young people here in this room that up until the 2010 Constitution, women did not have the same legal rights as men in Kenya. How many of you knew that? Wangapi wenyu wanajua that we couldn't own land, access to property, moving, like just kutoka outside the country. We didn't have the same rights as men. How many of you knew that? Like just a handful of us, right? So we come from a society that has disenfranchised women up until 2010. And hata tukisema that the 2010 Constitution brought about change, this change is not being implemented because we have political leaders who are keen on changing the Constitution even before they've tried to implement it. They've been trying to undermine the Constitution from the start of it because this Constitution is a kind of Constitution that as Guy says, it is a constitution of the common people imposed upon the political elite because it manages power. It shifts the power balance from them to us. But still, no one will let you know this, and no one will allow you to speak the truth because of many becauses. Because they would rather stay in power, because they would rather you not know, because they know change can happen if you are in the know. And so how do we begin the change? At our workplaces, for example, it is easy for your supervisor to tell you, hey, when say go get tea because you're a woman. Were you employed to be an office assistant? Maybe you are not. But because when ni mwanamke, it's better you go get tea than your male counterpart. So we begin, someone talked about what you can do to shift, to change how we are viewed. I think we begin by respecting ourselves first. We begin by stating our position first and claiming it and not being afraid, not to be afraid to be told you're being difficult, you're creating so much problems, be humble. We've been through the same situations. Mbona wewe, if you're going through the same, you should, you feel the need to complain over and over. But then I like the energy in this room, and I feel that we can actually effect change, as she has stated, that this is enough room for us to create a ripple effect and to ensure that this change is heard, and it's heard by everyone. But then, question to now our panelists. So these constitutions are always made difficult to understand by the common mwananchi. So for them to know what is there, it's probably through the media houses that have been bought by the same people who are trying to put us under their feet. And then, so how do we communicate these changes to the common mwananchi? Maybe a second question. In Kenya, power is granted to whoever has the most in their pockets. And it's evident that that is the same metric we use to award respect, we use to award elite.
You, Njoki, ignorant, and everybody else who refuses to teach themselves. But often ignorance of the political parties which hold power in our countries is a luxury of the elite. We can afford it because we are privileged. We're not hungry. The roads work for us. We don't have to pay tax. We are not oppressed as those others are. And so I think for very many people, our countries are very classist, right? People who go to private clinics and don't have to rely on a public hospital don't need the country to work for them. They don't need to put the ruling party on its tenterhooks to explain why women still die
in childbirth.
And I was like that until my father, a medical doctor who had retired at 65, died at 67 years of age because he was looking for a medicine that's not allowed to be kept in our houses. Medical doctors have rules that govern how they do their pharmacology stuff. There are medicines you can have at home and medicines you can't have at home. So I was among those elitist bitches who thought, why? I don't care about politics. We're wealthy enough. My father can take care of us. My father knew what he needed. He knew the illness, the heart attack that attacked him. He knew where to go for the medicine. He went to the health center and there was no medicine. And then as he's driving into the main national referral hospital, he dies at the gate. The following year, exactly 365 days later, we are from his memorial service. My mother drops down at home. Our house is in between the presidential state house in our village and the vice president's house. So privilege. We have the money. We are landed Ugandans. We have land. We have property. Who cares about ambulances if they work or they don't? Mommy drops down. I'm in the city. She's on the phone to me. She's saying, Stella, I cannot lift my chest. I'm like, Mommy, I know, but it's like a joke. She says, call somebody to help me. I'm like, I'm talking on the phone to her. I'm talking to the hospital. They're like, we don't have an ambulance. We might find one in an hour. I'm calling her back and saying, can you wait for an hour? She's like, Stella, I really want to throw up now. I want to vomit, but I can't lift my chest. She's like, get me a car. And I'm like, I've talked to the ambulance. I call them again. They found the ambulance. There's no fuel. They found the fuel. There's no driver. These are our public facilities. I get a neighbor to carry my mom 5 minutes away from the 5 minutes, literally 5 minutes away. As she's put on the bed, she dies. And then I realized my privilege
was not enough.
We had the money, we have the cars, we have everything, but when I needed the public health service to work for my mother or my father, they died. And then I realized it's not enough.
No.
To say I don't care about political parties. I don't care about KANU or NRM in my case. I joined in 2017, so my mom dies 26. My father dies 2014, my mother dies 2015. 2016, we lose the elections. 2017, I'm boiling with rage about the inefficiencies and failed governance. I need a political party. I desperately realize after the death of my parents that I cannot afford the luxury of not knowing how political parties work. So I've answered the question about the ignorance. I think it is very purposive. I think that those who dominate us have spread two lies. One, that if you have the power, the language of the elite, the wealth, the status, the clout, this is not your affair. Get on with your private life. Go and organize protests. Go and be in civil corporate society. Don't join the grassroots political parties. Okay, it's a lie of the enemy. Because they know when we come with whatever power we have, a degree, college education, English, holding a mic, being able to organize and type and do whatever skills it is that we have, we are going to empower the political parties. They don't want us to do that, especially the opposition political parties. I think the second lie that they tell is that, political parties are so not good. They can't help us. It's a lost cause. I feel that we can penetrate these political parties and change them. I am at the graveside looking for my father and my mother. I am looking for the election that was stolen. My rage, my anger, my acumen as an academic, my voice, my total irreverence can help my party. The question about what do we do? What is the role of political parties? Please educate yourselves. Make Google your friend. But actually, what is the role of Google? What is the, not Google.
The media.
What is the role of a political party? Somebody asked. Do we know? Do we even care? I think when you realize that we need political parties that work for us, you then realize, what is its role before I know what role I can play in it. If I don't know the entity, I cannot even know how I'll go there, or I'll go with the wrong expectations and I'll blunder, right? My agenda won't meet their agenda and I'll be an outcast. And then I'll say, political parties torment us. But no, you went in from the wrong side. So, different parties serve different causes. Some parties are meant to oppress us. In my case, in Uganda, the incumbent regime is about authoritarianism, leaving Yoweri Museveni, who's a dictator, in power, being as corrupt as possible, being as unaccountable as possible. Apologists of those who oppress us, people who are in the service of that party that upholds Yoweri Museveni, people who will go and rape. They are accomplices in the rape of the Constitution. That party does not serve my needs. The party of the oppressors will never serve me. And so I think for me that we should not think that all political parties are aligned with our own individual manifestos. Some political parties are in place to oppress women forever. It's their history. Okay? And so I think that there is the idea we study in Political Science 101 about political parties and what they do, and then there is the real thing we learn and live every day about our political parties. Go and study it. Study its constitution. They have constitutions, they have manifestos, they have a record, they have reports. And then look at the leadership. What are they doing? How do they live this ideology they are preaching? Right? I know what opposition political parties in my country do. I also know that very many of them are eating with the enemy, because in Uganda, NRM, the incumbent political party, uses money to depoliticize opposition political parties. They make these alliances around money, it's really about money, to depoliticize opposition political parties, to sell the goodwill of those who would contest for the masses, right? And so find out the agenda and the agenda and the agenda of the political party you want to belong to, and then maybe go and make your own political party.
If your political party, the one that you want to belong to, doesn't exist, you
make your own. Make your own. Make your own. It's difficult, but it's possible. We've seen grassroots parties, a lot of students' movements. There was questions around or contribution around the students' movement. Some people start there and they grow it. We heard of the sister from was it? NAP? What is it?
NAC.
NAC?
NAC.
Yes. So kudos to NAC, because I have met some of the founders and I've heard their stories, and for them it was about, we want a party. The party we are looking for, it's not there. Let us go and create our own, and then make sure you keep referring to why we created this party. Because political parties are living things. They are very organic. They change. Kenyan experience, maybe you'll tell me a little later. There was an important question from the Patriarchal Society of Pastoralists and Negotiated Democracy. Who is negotiating? Where is the problem? Are women the problem? Are men the problem? Halima, I want to thank you, because again, when we talk about women in politics, sometimes we forget we are not homogeneous. We are different. We're heterogeneous. We're all sorts. We come from all places. I want to say that patriarchy is really, really strong where it has a stronghold. And so first of all, I want to celebrate the fact that Sophia Abdial, did you say that the first elected MCA is called Sophia? A member of parliament. Right. So we must celebrate ladies, women such as Sophia, because the obstacles they overcome, some of us will never know. And I think, again, in terms of support and community support and sharing her story must happen, particularly by women, but also by those who believe in human rights and women's rights and democracy rights, and the idea that we must smash patriarchy, right? And so thanks for sharing her story. But in terms of the community she comes from, you said you're doing community radio broadcasting. That's one way we start. We start by teaching the masses. We start by teaching why it's important for women to participate. We start by saying we may be flower girls, but these flower girls have thorns. We are not denying you see us as flower girls, but let us use your metaphor and show you we can prick. Or maybe these flower girls, I don't know what flowers do. What do flowers do? We're not just beautiful. We can be eaten. Okay? We are food. These flowers, I don't know what flowers do, but we can work with the metaphors that disempower us to begin getting power.
To reclaim them.
Yes.
We reclaim the metaphor and we reclaim the power.
Yes, and one day the flower girls can stop being flower girls and just stay at home, refuse the labor, refuse to do anything, withdraw our services. Some ways of, you're calling us just a flower? Okay, who's going to cook your food at the party? Who's going to do your secretarial work? And I think some of the work that has to be done is us refusing to be flowers, or us becoming prickly flowers, or us working with these metaphors to debunk them. It's very hard work, okay? I want to celebrate your veil and the fact that you're wearing it, because sometimes even just having the veil on means a line has been drawn about what you can and cannot do. But the veil is very empowering. We can do things collectively as flower girls, and slowly we make the inroads. The question about negotiated democracy has to be interrogated again and again and again. If there are academics in the space, we need to work with them because they recreate the knowledge out there. Who is negotiating? If I'm not part of those negotiating the democracy, it doesn't work for me. But also, what's democracy? Democracy is defined by men who call us flower girls, right? I've been asking why Kenya has never had a woman member of parliament. No, woman president. Why? And I told it's going to be very, very difficult. Even with those very, very powerful women in Kenya, it's going to be really, really difficult. And I thought, why? Because Kenya should be strides ahead of Uganda. I want to be woman president one day. Maybe not. Maybe today I do. Maybe tomorrow I won't. But why is it impossible to imagine that we can have women doing what men are doing, even as heads of state in East Africa? Why is it impossible? Why can't we have the conversation and still think we are safe? Why must I say, I want to be woman president one day, and then I'm like, maybe I don't want. Why can't I say it for really? Yes, like I want to be woman president. Deal with it. Right? Again, we have to start emancipating ourselves from mental slavery. Yes, we do. Not funny, very sad. There are 3 more questions, sorry, that I think I want to tackle. Joy from part 2454 talked about legal rights and how for a long time women could not own land, have access to property, or travel outside the country. Sounds very similar to my own country. However, I want to say that in Uganda, women members of parliament have begun changing things on behalf of women. That when we get to power and we are tasked by those who tell us to represent them, we can do things. We can make change happen, right? So it's the question of what sort of woman are you taking to parliament? Not just a vagina, but a vagina that has a will to change things, right? The idea that we are second-class citizens, we should be quiet, we should be humble. And she's saying, so how do we communicate? How do we communicate the need for change? How do we challenge, break the ceiling of money and participating in politics, right? It takes a lot of money to participate. She said, the second question, she said, power is often given to those who already have, right? Money, wealth, whatever. I want to say that it is true, but there are so many forms of resource. We're talking about social capital, that many times we can ride on the backs of those who have. I think you talked about alliances and allying ourselves strategically. Sometimes it's not the woman who's most powerful, but the man with the biggest bags in the party. Ally yourself with those. If he falls sick, he's still a 4th year studying medicine, and you can't take that away. So I think we have to do the work that has to be done. The last question from Daphne. Tradition and culture. What do you mean, my sister? Our traditions, our cultures are not static, right? They change with time. They change with globalization. They change with contact. They change with exposure. Also, our traditions and cultures are not necessarily perfect. Some of them violate human rights, right? There are traditional practices in my country, such as child sacrifice, where children are murdered in the name of growing old. As a form of ritual practice, there are some cultures where women's clitoris are chopped out, they are dug out for infibulation. There are cultures where women must be beaten 3 times a year by their men. So domestic violence. And so what I'm saying is, while I'm a scholar of anthropology and I believe that as Africans we must know our roots, our traditions, and our cultures, we must not be blind, right, to the abuses within our traditions and cultures. And the question is, gender disparity is very much ingrained within our traditions and our cultures, so we must maintain these things, and I'm thinking we are going to inform our cultures and our traditions based on where we are today, not based on the history of our grandparents. If there's something that's harmful to the society, I will not oppose it in the name of apology. If there are things that need to be retained, respectful, let us retain them, let us maintain them. The issue that it's traditional or cultural for women to stay on the bottom and men to be on top must be abused, must be smashed, must be dismantled, and we must introduce a new culture, a new tradition where women and men are equal citizens, are equal human beings, and the values of human rights and democracy must be embedded within our traditions and our cultures. Allow